Virtual summits are the most powerful online marketing tool available to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and create an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. If you are ready to take your summit to the next level, then tune into the Virtual Summit podcast with Dr. Mark T. Wade.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software and creator of the One Day Summit Formula. And I'm on a mission to help you, the summit host, get your summit out to the world in a powerful and impactful way. So let's get started. Hey, Summit host, Dr. Mark T. Wade here, founder of Virtual Summit Software and your host on the Virtual Summit podcast. We are in for a treat on this episode. I cannot wait to dive into this. We have legendary Bailey Richert with us here. She is a head of the Infopreneur. She's been called the Queen of Summits, and she was actually the mastermind, the brain, the genius behind the 30 Days Funnel Challenge Summit that happened. We're going to dive into some aspects of that. I think we're going to get way into the weeds with this and walk away with some incredible information. So Bailey, one, I'm super honored to have you on the podcast. And two, it's great to actually meet you. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's great to be here.
Now, before we jump into all the specifics here and get into the genius you're holding over there, why don't you tell our audience just a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Well, like you said, my name is Bailey Richert, and I'm a business coach for infopreneurs. So essentially, I help individuals launch brands, usually personal brands, online that they can then monetize with information, products, and services, books, online courses, speaking, summits, masterminds, workshops, that sort of thing. So I've been doing virtual summits since 2016, which is when I launched my very own Infopreneur Summit, which we actually just had its 4th consecutive annual year this past April. And it's been really cool to be recognized in the whole online digital marketing space as an expert in summits, because ever since that fateful summit that I did back then, I've been teaching other people how to do them, worked with some major VIP clients, and it's been a really great ride.
It has been an amazing ride. Watching your success over there, you've done some incredible things. You are a summit coach as well. You've helped hundreds of students run successful virtual summits. And one of those, I think I can call him a student. I know Russell over there. I'd say it was Russell Brunson. So why don't we go ahead and introduce this concept? Why don't you tell us about the actual summit? Don't go too much in the details of that, because then I want to come back and talk about how the idea came.
Sure. So what you're referring to was the 30days.com summit that many people may have seen when it first was released in the fall of 2018, going on almost a year ago now. And I can't believe it's been that long. But basically that was it was an online virtual summit that we did, where the topic was all about how the guest speakers, if they had lost their entire business, how in the world would they get started again in 30 days? Now, each one of the speakers on the summit was actually a member of Russell's 2 Comma Club awardee group, meaning that if you're familiar with the ClickFunnels community, we give out these awards to anybody who makes $1 million. That's where the 2 commas kind of comes from, makes $1 million with a funnel. And so we invited, it ended up being a total of 30 participants, so it was actually a really nice number, 30 people, 30 days, to participate in this event and share their method for how they would get their business back up and going.
And it was a pretty big one. Like, why don't we go ahead and share the success that it had, like right off the bat, and then maybe even by the end of it, what kind of numbers, if you can share those, did it do?
Sure. So I definitely can say with confidence, because I know this as a fact, that the funnel made over $1 million in 13 and a half days, just shy of 2 weeks. Now, that funnel has been running for over a year. And those people who went through the funnel might remember that the offer, and I'm sure we're going to get more into detail about this, the offer was the One Funnel Away Challenge, OFA. Now, since that summit has happened, the OFA has become its own offer that has been used in other funnels, and you can even register for it separately without having to go through the summit. So it's difficult for me to say how much money that offer has made over the past year. I'm sure it's millions, absolutely. And I'm not privy to that information anyway. But the summit had since been turned evergreen. So I know there's people that are still going through it even today.
Virtual Summit's software makes hosting a summit easier than ever. The only software in the world designed specifically for hosting a summit lets you set up a summit in a matter of hours with no tech skill or team needed. You can try out the Virtual Summit's software free at virtualsummits.com. But hurry, this is a limited offer.
Man, that is just incredible. Like, imagine that, $1 million in 13 days from a virtual summit. That is just incredible. And there's people out there saying summits are dead. Like, come on now. Okay, so let's jump into that, because this was your idea. Like, you came up with the fact of doing something along this line. So can you walk us through the process of how you came up with the idea? Take us to that moment, and then how you actually set forward to making something like this happen.
Sure. So it was actually in Orlando, Florida in the spring of 2018. I was sitting in the conference room at Russell's ClickFunnels event called Funnel Hacking Live, and I was an attendee. Russell didn't know me, but I knew him because I had been a ClickFunnels user since they first came out. They came out in late 2014, and I started with them in early 2015 and have been with them ever since. So I'm sitting in this conference, and at this point, I had already done multiple summits for my own business and my students, and I had my course and all this sort of stuff. And so I was literally just sitting there, and I thought to myself, at the time, ClickFunnels had about like 60-something thousand users. Now they have, at the time of this recording, about 100,000. And so I said to myself, well, but there's only 2,500, 3,000 people in this conference room. I know that a virtual summit could be an incredible way to reach all of those other people that can't come to this conference because of financial issues, people that can't come to this conference because they live in a different country and can't get a visa or something like that. And so I had this idea that doing a virtual summit would be pretty cool for ClickFunnels. And I also had already been thinking that, the 2 Comma Club winners would be incredible speakers, because often, though not completely, but often those are the individuals that Russell asks to come and speak on stage at his event. Well, like I said, I didn't know Russell, but who I knew at the ClickFunnels community was Julie Stoyan. So Julie was, now she has left ClickFunnels to pursue her own things, but she was the VP of marketing. She wasn't even the VP of marketing at that time, but she quickly became it after. So basically it's what she was. And I knew her because she was a guest on my summit for 2 years in a row before. And so it's just kind of funny because virtual summits are literally the thing that has made all of this happen. And so I literally that night, I was sitting in my hotel room and I'm feeling kind of nervous about it, but I wrote Julie an email and said, hey, I have this crazy idea. I think Russell should do a summit. Here's my kind of thoughts about it. What do you think? If you think no, then I'll drop it, but maybe this is something we could run up the flagpole. And I didn't hear back from her that day, which is understandable. It was like midnight. And then the next day I saw her. This was at Disney World. So I saw her walking around the hotel and I literally just grabbed her by the arm and I was like, hey, I had this great idea. And she goes, yeah, I know. I saw your email. I think it's awesome. Let me see what I can do. And I have to give tons of kudos to Julie because she really believed in the idea and she advocated for me. I mean, Russell and Julie and everyone else, they could have taken the idea and then hired somebody else to do it, but that's not how Russell does business. And so I was really fortunate that they let me do it. So long story short is that, it took kind of several months to get going because you know how these things can be. So we had several calls and talked it out. And those of you who were a part of the event might remember that it wasn't just a summit, but it was also a book. We actually had each one of the speakers write their own individual chapters, and we compiled the 30 Days book, which is not normally something people do as a part of the summit. Well, when I finally got a chance to talk to Russell all those months later, we actually talked about what this would look like. And the 30 days thing wasn't my idea. I just thought that we would put on the 2 Comma Club Summit or something. Russell was the one that had the 30 days idea because he had already been thinking about doing a book, this collaborative book. And then I said, well, why don't we run with that? Why don't we do the book and just add a summit onto it? It's the perfect way because you can then interview each one of the speakers about their plans. We'll just have them write the chapter, we'll add on an interview, and then we'll do a summit with the book launch. And he said, that's brilliant. Let's do it. And I said, cool. By the way, can I run this thing and manage this? And at the time, I had actually offered to do it for free. Now, Russell, of course, being the incredible and good businessman that he is, he did pay me. But that's how much I wanted this opportunity. Was I was actually willing to do work for months and months for free to get into Russell's good graces, because I knew amazing opportunities could come out of that. And, the commitment was, when we finally decided to run ahead with this, was probably like end of April, beginning of May. And the summit, it took a while. It took all summer to kind of put together. It didn't end up launching until, I think, September, something like that. So it took a while, a bit longer than we normally do because of the book aspects, right? But that's basically how the whole process kind of came about.
We always say summits can create strategic partnerships that can create a lot of opportunities. And this was a perfect example of that. And so again, to clarify what Bailey's saying is she was actually the host of this summit as well. She was the one who got to interview all of the guests, the expert speakers on there. And I'm sure that created a lot of relationships as well. So
oh, absolutely. Getting to even just have some FaceTime with these incredible businessmen and women that I knew of and, admired, but had never actually met before has been fantastic, because now they know me. And so, I've worked on some other projects for other clients, and then I did the Affiliate Bootcamp Summit for Russell as well. And going back to all of these people and saying, hey, remember me? And, it's been great.
That is incredible. Like that is a really awesome. And I want to focus on the fact, or just mention the fact, this was an idea that you pursued. Like you could have been like, oh no, he wouldn't listen to me, or this wouldn't happen. And then none of this would have happened, or maybe somebody else would have gotten the opportunity. So I love this kind of step up, kind of be bold, ask for things that maybe seem out of your reach, and then watch the miracles and the amazing things that kind of come to fruition from it. So now let's dive into some of the technical aspects as far as the idea. You crafted, now we have the idea, you've put this together and you say, okay, we're going to do this summit. We're going to do 2 Comma Club members, and we're going to do it over the course of 30 days. Here's the kind of concept. What was the next step? Like, how was that like reaching out to the speakers? Was it super easy? Was it difficult? Like, and then the process of getting everything you needed, because talk us through what was in that, because it was not as simple as just recording a video.
Right. No, it definitely wasn't. So basically, what we had Russell do was record a video inviting the speakers to come on board. Just one, not one for every single speaker, because as you know, just because we had 30 people, we did have to reach out to more than 30, because several people said no, they weren't able to do it, whatever the circumstances were. So what we then had, what we did was we had Russell's assistant, Melanie, send out what we call a pass the torch email. Basically, it was an invitation email to each one of the speakers that Russell wanted to invite that had a link to the video, details about the event, and then introducing me for the first time. And I was CC'd on these emails because people don't know who I am. And so if I had messaged them and said, hey, I'm doing a summit for Russell, they probably would have thought I was making it up. So then we waited for their response, for them to say, yes, I'm in. And then at that point, I took over. So I said, hey, fantastic. I'm really glad you're in. The first thing we had them do was fill out a Google form with all of their biographical information, what their official preferred name was, how they wanted to be referred to, what their official title was, their official bio, where's a link to your official headshot, all this other sort of stuff. So we could just get all that information right up front. And that's such an important part of the process, actually, because a lot of people, whenever they're putting on these summits, are not respecting people's personal brands the way they should. They're just Googling pictures off of the internet, and you can't be doing that. You need to make sure that these relationships are strong, and respecting people's personal brands is important. So as soon as we got their information on the form, we considered them to be a confirmed participant. So then the next thing after getting them to do the form was having them write the book chapter. So we would actually take a Google document, essentially. I would create a Google document, and then we put instructions on page 1 of the Google document, and I sent them the link to the Google Doc and asked them to write their chapter in there. Several people wrote it elsewhere and they copied it in. Some people wrote it in there from the beginning. And we told them, don't worry about copy editing or anything. We'll have them professionally copy edited. Just worry about the content. And one of the things that I think that we didn't do as well the first time with the 30-day summit, but we did do later on and tried to make better, was we needed to put more limitations on the chapter writing. We didn't tell them how many pages, or we didn't tell them like you could include pictures or whatnot. So we ended up getting a lot of questions about that. And in future summits that we've done, we've narrowed it down and said, okay, 20 pages or less. You can only use photos if they're, you own the copyright, and if the, image is this high quality, and other sort of stuff like that. So eventually, whenever they were done writing their chapters, I should also mention that we gave them a deadline, which was before the deadline we needed, because inevitably everybody missed the deadline, because writing a chapter about what you would do, writing a 20-page chapter, it's almost like a small ebook, essentially. Writing a big chapter about your 30-day plan was a lot. And I want to say that I actually don't recommend people do that in their summits, especially if you're just starting out or a beginner, because that's a huge ask of one of your speakers, to give you that much time and content that's exclusive to your summit. I mean, most people are going to say no to that. Russell can do stuff like that because he's Russell. He has this huge community of followers and people that love him and that owe him so much that, everyone was jumping to participate in this because they also knew how much exposure and stuff they were going to get. But for most people, I don't really recommend it. So anyway, once they were finally done with their chapters, then I would schedule the interview with them, and we would do it just like this over Zoom. And I would give them, all of the information ahead of time. You need to have your camera on. It needs to be this microphone, that sort of stuff. And I would record the interviews. Now, we actually did the interviews in 2 parts, and this was strategic. So we recorded 2 parts of the interviews back to back. And the first part was like this. It was a talking head style interview. I read everybody's chapter before I went into the interview and came prepared with questions to ask them. It was about 30 or 40 minutes for each one of those sessions. Some ran a little bit longer depending on how much someone spoke. And then what we did for the second part of the interview was actually a screen share situation where someone would actually then go through some of the assets that they were talking about in their interview. So, the whole purpose of the 30 Days Summit, right, is to promote ClickFunnels, and it was to show people how you could do, business with ClickFunnels. So in that part 2, those bonus interviews, what we had asked them was, could you show us inside of either your 2 Comma Club funnel or one of your best, funnels, depending on what you're willing to reveal to the world. And that's what they did, is we went into people's ClickFunnels account. They kind of showed us how the funnels work. They opened up some of their funnel pages in their browsers. I was able to ask them some questions on the fly about what they were showing me. And for that reason, having tons of experience with the ClickFunnels software was also very helpful, because I, was so familiar with it. I already knew what I was looking at. And we included those part 2 interviews as bonuses for those people who upgraded in the funnel rather than just getting the free pass they paid for the offer.
That is very incredible. So I have a question about that. Why have the speakers write the book chapters versus transcribing the videos? What was the thought process behind that?
Okay, that's a great question, actually. And I'm so glad we ended up doing the whole chapter writing thing, which is because what we wanted and what we did get from our speakers was not just an overview of their 30 days, it was actually a day-by-day plan. So we told them when they were writing their chapters, we need you to write what happens on day 1, what happens on day 2. And anyone who's read the book will know it's very, very, very detailed. There's no way that somebody could possibly come up with something that was so detailed like that off the top of their heads. And we also wanted these interviews to be as value-packed as possible. And you know how it is when you get some people on an interview, some people can deliver those minute details off the top of their heads, but a lot of people can't or won't. They'll just keep it kind of surface level, especially if you only have, 20 minutes to talk or 30 minutes to talk. And so we really wanted people to spend time thinking about that 30-day plan. And I think this was also something that was really smart on Russell's part, is that he knows that there are so many people in the ClickFunnels community who are at the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey. And to get them something, a huge material, something that was like, this is literally the roadmap that you should follow if you're just getting started. All you need to do is pick a plan. That would not have been as helpful, I think, if we didn't have those plans written down. And it also allowed me to ask significantly more detailed questions and to get more value out of people on the interviews, because I was able to listen to the interviews. I was able to actually say, hey, Joe, on day number 8, you talk about this, but then you don't do this until day 11. Why is that? Can you explain that? And so I didn't let the speakers get off easy. I didn't ask the same questions in every interview, which is what some summit hosts do. Every single interview was very specific to what their plan was.
Be sure to check out the speaker management tool inside your virtual summit software, which lets you quickly and easily recruit and manage your speakers on your virtual summit, literally eliminating hundreds of hours of work. Get more information at virtualsummits.com.
Well, you bring up a great point that I want to kind of dive into this for 1 second. Even though it's not specifically related to this summit, the interview and the importance of the interview. I'm a big proponent on you need to have an impactful and professional interview. Can you talk us through your thoughts for summit hosts that are out there getting ready to go do interviews with their speakers? Like, why not just do the standard 10 questions and ask all of the speakers the exact same questions? What's your thought process behind that?
Right. Well, first of all, I think if you ask the same 10 questions every single interview, people are going to be really bored, especially if you do summits the way I encourage people to do them, which is where, you release all of the day 1 interviews at the same time and you leave them up for 24 hours. Then you do the day 2 interviews for 24 hours. People are usually watching the interviews, pretty quickly, one right after one another. And if you're asking the same questions, it's just going to get really boring, because depending on what the questions are, a lot of people are going to answer the same way. And that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for valuable, unique content that only the speakers themselves can bring to the table. And that's going to require you do some preparation for your interviews. And I think that's where people they ultimately just get lazy. The hosts, the people that are interviewing the speakers, they say, well, I don't have time to, listen to some of the content or read previous blog posts from the speakers to figure out good questions. And that's something you absolutely need to give some time to. So I work out with every single one of my speakers what questions I'm going to ask in advance, what topic they're specifically going to cover. I try to make sure that none of my interviews are really overlapping one another. Sure, there might be a couple of people that speak on online courses, for example, but we're going to find a different angle, or there's going to be something that we'll talk about that's going to make it, worth listening to. And I think you also owe it to your speakers to do that, because if you have 5 people that are all talking about the same thing, someone's going to stop listening after the 3rd person, and that's really, doing an injustice to the other speakers on your event. And I have, tons of testimonials and people's feedback to back up what I'm saying right now, because every single year, I put in the effort to make sure those interviews are unique and value packed, and people are always commenting on how good it is. So I really do think that it's critical that your content is that good.
I'm really glad you said that. This is for me something that I think is damaging summits, is the fact that people are just asking the same questions to every speaker. It's like they're just clones of each session, right, and they become boring. So I love this. So you're essentially saying you determine your speakers, you pick specific themes, categories, or topics. You develop interview questions specifically for that speaker, and it keeps the content fresh, interesting, and unique. Mm-hmm. Do you have, and that is a decent amount of work. That is not simple or easy to do. We're acknowledging that. So do you have any kind of thoughts on, do you have a set number of speakers you like to have based on that amount of work? Or what would you recommend for somebody who's kind of doing their first summit and getting started with that?
Sure. So if you're doing your very first summit, I recommend less than 30 speakers. So somewhere between 20 and 30, I think, is a reasonable amount. Anything beyond that is going to be far too chaotic. And I say that as someone who has hosted my own summits. I think last time we had 52 speakers. And I have to admit that even as an experienced summit host, I'll never do that again. That was just absolutely insane. The amount of work that goes into every single one of those speakers, I don't think people realize. It's not just all the organization that you mentioned, but then even after the interviews are done, There's the editing, the transcribing, the creating the thumbnail images, and just the back and forth communication with each one of the speakers. I'm communicating with every single person individually. I write them individual emails at least once a week leading up to the summit, 1 or 2 months in advance. And so, it's so incredibly time consuming, and that's fine, but it just becomes a little unmanageable at a certain number. So I think in the future, even my summits are going to be coming back down. And I think another thing that kind of happens when you allow yourself to just have so many speakers is that you are not thinking about them as strategically anymore. It becomes just, oh yeah, I want that person on there. Maybe they have a big list, or yeah, you can come on. And anybody that asks you if they can join your summit, by the time you've already started promoting it, you should definitely say no, because that person is coming on so last minute. They're just looking for an opportunity to leverage your summit for their exposure. They're not actually planning on being a real partner with you. They're not going to promote it. They didn't work it into their content calendar, and they haven't put in the time and effort, that all of the other speakers that you've had so far already have. And so I always tell people that through this entire planning process, there needs to be a date where you say, okay, we are out of the content creation phase and we're into the promotion phase. We're not accepting any more speakers. It doesn't matter who they are. We're not letting them on unless, it was Russell himself. They're getting a no from me, and so many people can't do that. They can't. They're so reluctant because they think, well, if that person who I said no to could have been the key to my summit being successful. No, that person is not the key. You're the key, but you think that person is magically going to make your summit better, and they're not.
That is so true. And then now you start to build up a list for your next summit that you're going to do. You have somebody ready for that. I love that. And this was such great information right here. I'm glad we kind of took a moment to go into this. Now, I want to continue to move forward now with the summit, the 30day.com summit. You've got the speakers, you've recorded it. Now it goes off to post-production, gets all, fancied up. What was the promotional schedule like? How did you and the team come up with that? And then what was kind of required, and what was kind of the keys to success in that specific area?
Sure. So if I'm being completely honest with you, ClickFunnels has their own internal sales funnel agency. And so there was a point when I was done collecting and creating all of the content where I basically handed it all off to the sales funnel team, the marketing team, and basically said, okay, we're ready to go now. I was, still involved in all of the conversations, but, they have funnel managers over there and people that do all the video editing and all that sort of stuff. So the promotion ended up being a couple of weeks. I think it was about 3 weeks 2 or 3 weeks before we did the actual summit. And the summit itself was only 3 days long. So that was, a pretty short event whenever it actually happened. But I was still in charge of communicating with all of the speakers because I had been their liaison to this point so far about the launch and making sure that, they had all the materials they needed to help share it and their affiliate links and how all this was going to go. So I think that trying to manage something to that scale and not having that help of all of those different team members at ClickFunnels would have been a real challenge, but it was able to come together so quickly because they're just pros at what they do.
Yeah, I mean, to orchestrate something of that magnitude, you can't do it alone. You got to have a little bit of help over there, even for the Queen of Summits, right? So let's move into the offer. I want to talk about the summit offer. I mean, obviously it generated $1 million in the first 13 days. What were some of the key components to that, and why do you think it was so powerful or successful?
Right. So Russell actually did something on this funnel, which was a bit unique and is not normally what I teach and what I recommend to people. So what we normally do in a virtual summit is we have a front end offer, which is called the All Access Pass, which is where you're upgrading from the free version of the summit to the paid version. And it gives you lifetime access to all of the videos, access to any bonus content like those part 2 interviews and things like that. Maybe there's also things like transcriptions or notes or, MP3 downloads. Usually all of the content in an all access pass is related to the summit content itself. And then after people buy the all access pass, they have an opportunity then to upgrade with a, one-time offer. There's some sort of upsell that's given to people, which is relevant to the topic of whatever your summit actually is. So that's how I normally recommend that people create their summit funnels. Now, Russell being Russell and also having the incredible team that he has, he said, well, we're going to do something a little bit different. What we're actually going to do is after people register for the free event where they will be able to watch limited time, where they'll be able to watch the interviews for a limited time, we're going to ask them to upgrade not to an all access pass, but to upgrade to this thing called the One Funnel Away Challenge, which is going to be a 30-day challenge where people will be able to go through the entire process of setting up their very first funnel with ClickFunnels, or their very first or next funnel. And what he ended up doing was giving away lifetime access to all of the videos in the summit as a bonus to the One Funnel Away Challenge. And so he made this One Funnel Away Challenge a $100 offer, so it was super irresistible. And then he had an upsell, which I think was traffic secrets. It was like, okay, build your funnel and then get traffic to your funnel, right? So it's pretty logical offer sequence. And so the reason why he did that was because, well, there were a couple of reasons. At the time, Russell was really into this idea of using a challenge. It's something that somebody in his inner circle member group had kind of turned him on to. And so he was excited about that. He knew he wanted to make a, low cost offer that was going to be able to convert a lot of people in his community into ClickFunnels users and to stay with ClickFunnels. So that was something that he was planning on launching for a while. And then I think he knew at that time he was definitely going to make the One Funnel Away Challenge its own offer later on after the summit was over. And so he decided that it would make more sense to make that the front end offer rather than just doing an all access pass for $50 or something like that. So obviously it ended up working out really well for him, but I don't really recommend that a lot of people do that if they're just getting started, because the amount of work and time and effort that goes into doing that, I think it could be more strategically done in a different way for people that have less resources than Russell has.
Yeah, we don't all have the team that Russell has over there to put all of that together. So then can you really quickly with that offer, just the stack, what was it? It was the One Summit Away Challenge, or One Funnel Away Challenge. There was the upsell was, can you just boom, boom, boom for me one more time?
It's been a while. So if I remember correctly, when you bought the One Funnel Away Challenge for $100, you got the training materials and the 30 days of, live coaching, and you got a physical copy of the 30 days book. You may have seen online those big boxes that people get sent to them that has the book and it has a whole bunch of other stuff. And then you got lifetime access to part 1 and part 2 videos from the 30 Days Summit itself. And then I believe the upsell after that was his traffic secrets course. So that's what I think it was.
Wow, that is an incredible offer right there. So how are they reusing the summit now? Now, once the summit ended, how did they kind of shift it over into Evergreen, or how is it being used, or is it still being used?
I believe that it still is. 30days.com is the URL for the summit, so you can go there and check it out. And the last time I checked, for those people who are ClickFunnels affiliates, it was still in the affiliate dashboard for people to even be able to promote as an affiliate. They did end up making it evergreen, but there's a little trick that they use. There's a feature that's no longer available to people that's a part of ClickFunnels called FOMO funnels, fear of missing out. And it was basically ClickFunnels' internal solution or competition to Deadline Funnel, where you could put limited time access on pages, and they use that to create the funnel to make it evergreen. It was something that people who were on the old Actionetics MD plan could get, but since that plan is no longer, I'm pretty sure that feature has been sunsetted, and I don't think you can get it anymore. So if people are looking to that funnel as a way to replicate it, I'm not even sure you're able to get those capabilities.
I love all this terminology. It was sunsetted. It was action. Like, this is great. So as we start to round out this interview here, I do want to circle back to a question about the book that you put together, just for anybody looking to do maybe some of our advanced listeners. Do you know the process they did with the book once they received all the content? Is there a specific way, or even that you would recommend somebody wanting to put together, like potentially a self-published free plus shipping offer?
Sure. Well, we did have a designer that was able to work with us. And so we took all of the chapters, and even though I read them all, we had a professional copywriter go through all of the chapters and make sure that they were up to the standards, because there's actually, ClickFunnels has an internal copywriting, style guide, that says this is how book titles are written. This is how, Russell's name is written, stuff like that. And so we had a copywriter go through all of the chapters, and that took a while because, as you can imagine, the book was several hundred pages at this point. And then we had a designer create the cover and then also create the interior design, because that's something you have to worry about as well. The fonts and the spacing and all that sort of stuff. And then we did end up getting the book produced by a publisher, not an official publisher, but like, I know they looked into Lulu's at one point, or Lulu or something. I'm not sure what they ended up going with, but they ended up, shipping it out, outsourcing the printing, of course, and buying so many, copies in advance, which is typically how a lot of self-publishers do it.
With the Ever Summit feature inside the Virtual Summit software, you can rerun your summit as if it were live, ongoing forever with one click of a button. This now lets you continue to use your summit forever, bringing in qualified and engaged leads every month into your business. Get more information at virtualsummit.com.
Wow, that's impressive and sounds like a monumental task. So not sure I'm going to be implementing that in any time in the immediate future, but it is good to know. So now as we kind of wrap this out, what I would love to hear is kind of your keys to success. And looking at this from a high level, what were the one or two things that you think were a key to success of this summit?
Well, when it comes to this 30-day summit, I think that the things that made it so successful was that Russell chose strategically the individuals that he wanted to be a part of this. And I think that they were already people that the ClickFunnels community, knew and admired. And he also had just a fantastic hook, right? I mean, so often I don't think people honestly put enough thought into what their summit's actually going to be called or what it's going to be about. And the 30days.com domain, I don't know if it was taken at the time or it just cost a lot, but I know that was a pretty significant financial investment as well, because that, that was such a popular domain, right? But it was so critical. It was so critical to this whole thing, the 30days.com, 30-day summit, 30 days, to rebuild your business. I mean, he really went all in with that. And I think that was a huge part of it as well, because, it was also really short, so people remembered it really easily, and it was just a lot of like buzz, what's up with 30 days and 30 days and that sort of stuff. So I think that some of those things were the keys. I do think that even though it was so much additional work, having people write out those plans in advance was critical to really getting the value out of each one of the speakers. And I think that, trusting his team to put together an incredible event and everyone knowing exactly what their part of, this entire puzzle is good, too. Russell has put together strategically an incredible team at the ClickFunnels community, plus all of his different contractors like myself. And that's absolutely a huge part of the success here.
That is amazing. And so what would you now, looking back on it, if you were going to redo it, what would you do different?
Probably not wait so long to pitch it to Russell. Everything happens the way that it's supposed to happen. And I think honestly, if I did try to pitch it any earlier, if this had, kind of worked out that way, who knows what would have happened, because maybe I wouldn't have had as much summit experience where he would have let me run it, or maybe he wouldn't have had the 30 days idea yet and it wouldn't have taken off the way that it did. I think in the end of the day, I'm really, really happy with how everything went together. I can't really think of too many things that I would honestly probably have done differently. I was the one that had asked Russell if I could do the interviews, and I'm really glad I stepped up and did that, because for a minute there, we were kind of considering that someone who was more the face of ClickFunnels at the time would do the interviews. I mean, Russell, of course, was considered, but he's so busy. So then we were thinking like, well, would Dave Woodward do it, or would someone else in the ClickFunnels community? And I raised my hand and said, no, I really want to do this. Please let me do this. And Russell, kudos to Russell. He just had so much faith in me. He just, we've had several chats on Voxer and a few talks, and he really just sensed my energy and knew that I was a ClickFunnels diehard. And so, he really just put so much into my hands. And And, someone else, may have dropped the ball, but it was such an important opportunity to me. And I knew it was going to mean so much for my business. I mean, I would have gone above and beyond to do anything in order to make this opportunity good. So at the end, I'm really pleased with how everything went.
And I'm really, really pleased that you are sharing all this amazing information with us. I also want to point out a kind of a different perspective of what you actually did with this. I mean, being a summit coach, you've helped hundreds of people do successful summits. You've ran your own successful summits, but this is another kind of aspect that you could be doing. You can run summits for other people or other businesses. So for some of our summit hosts out there that go, well, I don't have a business yet, or I don't even know what to do. Like, this is a great way that you could maybe connect, collaborate, or even get in with bigger brands, companies, and things like that. So that's very inspiring. So we're going to wrap this episode up here. We could keep chatting, Bailey, all day on summits, I know, but we're going to have to let you get on with your day. I know you have other things scheduled. Before we do that, I'd love for you to go ahead and share with our listeners, our audience, what's the best place to get in touch with you, where are you hanging out at, and any other information you'd like them to know.
Sure. Thanks so much. Yeah, really the best place to go is my website, BaileyRichert.com. You can find links, to all my virtual summit blog posts there. I have some free virtual summit downloads, a masterclass, tons of training and other things that, you can find there. So that really is the best way. If people want to get in touch with me directly, there's a contact form on my website, or you can send an email to contact@BaileyRichert.com.
Perfect. And we'll link to all of this in the show notes, including this summit that Bailey's been telling us about over at podcast.virtualsummits.com/82. So thanks again so much, Bailey. This has been absolutely incredible. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to share your insights and wisdom.
Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you, Summit hosts, for spending this time with Bailey and I. I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software. And remember, your message matters. So go out there and make an impact in the world. Don't forget to check out all the links and resources we just talked about over in the show notes, podcast.virtualsummits.com/82. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the Virtual Summit podcast. Head over to the show notes to check out all the links and resources from this episode, and be sure to grab your free trial of the Virtual Summit software.
Now, I want to end this episode by saying to all the Summit hosts listening right now, I believe in you, and you can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and most importantly, make an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. So don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started, because imperfect action is always better than no action. Thank you, and see you on the next episode.